You know, if it's making this many mistakes, it need to be overhauled. There's something wrong with the criminal justice system.
I don't think it's hard to see in this case how they got it wrong.
There are a much larger number of wrongfully convicted people than anyone wants to admit.
I've always been taught that the truth will set you free. Let's see if it does.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Patrick Fazio. Innocent until proven guilty. It's a fundamental right in America's criminal justice system. If you're ever wrongly accused, you'd think your best defense is you're innocent. But our 41 Action News year-long investigation uncovered a trend. Innocence isn't always enough, especially in Missouri.
You got somebody who's out on the streets who shot this guy several times.
Pastor Darrell Burton at Leewood's Church of the Resurrection prays that the criminal justice system convicts the real killers in murder cases.
The system is just, man, it's messed up.
That's why he's starting an organization to support the wrongly imprisoned. Burton says he's seen too many innocent people locked up, including himself.
These mistakes are huge because you're talking about a quarter century of my life.
Burton spent nearly 25 years in the Jefferson City Maximum Security Penitentiary for a murder in St. Louis that he didn't commit.
I had a 7-month-old daughter who I saw 3 times. And I didn't see her again until she was turning 25. For her, I'm a stranger that she's trying to get to know.
After receiving his letters begging for help, Kansas City attorney Cheryl Pilot represented Burton for free in his appeal hearings.
The prosecution's case to begin with was extremely thin.
No motive, and an eyewitness later admitted to lying under oath because prosecutors secretly reduced his prison time to testify against Burton.
If there is any deal or benefit given, that needs to be disclosed.
Besides that secret deal, Pilot also tracked down the gas station clerk who actually saw the murder and had told police Burton was too dark-skinned to be the gunman. But prosecutors never mentioned that eyewitness at trial, and they disputed her testimony in appeal hearings.
It is un-American for someone who is clearly innocent to remain in prison.
It took years to convince a judge to finally exonerate Burton from his life sentence.
There are so many ways for things to go wrong, and no one wants to admit that because we think we have a great justice system.
So this is our application room. These are all folks who are waiting for assistance.
550 inmates are on the waiting list for legal help from the Midwest Innocence Project. Independent studies estimate 2 to 5% of all felony convicts in the U.S. are wrongly imprisoned.
Even if it's only 2 to 5%, that's a lot of people. In our 5-state region, that's like 5,000 people.
Tricia Bushnell says they only have enough staff to work on the most obvious innocence cases. 16 right now, including Rodney Lincoln's.
The victim wants him out. That's what's incredibly shocking.
The 7-year-old victim told police in 1982 that a man with short hair murdered her mom, but detectives made her pick from this lineup of men with long hair, except for one.
I had that little girl walk up in front of me and point her finger at me. I can't describe the pain.
Police arrested Rodney Lincoln for the murder of the girl's mother in St. Louis. He's serving a life sentence for it.
I've lasted this long because I know I'm innocent.
I had to tell you guys, Rodney did not do it. He was not in my house.
Decades later, the victim's daughter told prosecutors how police manipulated her into wrongly identifying Rodney Lincoln.
And I would be willing to take a lie detector, whatever you want. But he was not in the house. He did not kill my mom.
She agreed to this taped interview after learning Lincoln is left-handed, unlike the man who killed her mom and stabbed her.
He sat on top of me and used this hand to stab me. And I told the cops that.
DNA tests later showed the hair presented at trial is not Lincoln's, but the state keeps fighting his appeals.
They will do whatever they have to do to get a conviction.
People may believe that these facts are too good to be true, that you guys must be exaggerating this.
Ricky Kidd is serving 2 life sentences for a crime he says he didn't commit.
He didn't do it, and I know he didn't do it.
Former Kansas City Police Commissioner Alvin Brooks agrees Kidd is innocent. Brooks told us he re-examined the 1996 double murder and realized they locked up the wrong guy.
It was not Ricky Kidd. It was another person, but they did look a little alike.
I was very skeptical.
Former prosecutor Cindy Dodge also changed her mind after reinvestigating the murders and Kidd's alibi.
I have zero doubt about his innocence. He is innocent. Ricky didn't commit these murders.
But Ricky Kidd is still behind bars.
Nobody wants the wrong person in prison. We want the right people in prison. Surely nobody would want this to happen to them.
So how do innocent people get locked up for murders they didn't commit? We'll show you what they all have in common that's actually meant to protect you when we come back.
Justice isn't being done for a very large group of people who are constitutionally entitled to it.
Anytime the wrong person is in prison, that means the right person is free to roam the community.
We've got this really complex system of procedural barriers that are designed to keep prisoner cases out of court.
41 Action News has shown you stories of people who say they're wrongly imprisoned. Some have been freed, most have not, despite strong cases. We looked into how the wrong person can get locked up, and we discovered they all have one thing in common that's actually meant to protect you.
I had one visit with this lady, one visit. And the next time I saw her, we was going to trial. The blood of Christ given for you.
Decades before he became a pastor,
Stephanie, the blood of Christ given for you.
Daryl Burton says his public defender failed to look into evidence that would have proved his innocence.
That would have been my alibi, but she didn't go and investigate any of that.
Burton says he wasn't even in Missouri during the murder he was later convicted of.
I was out there, in Washington State.
I'm out here grieving, so.
But his public defender never contacted Burton's friends who he visited at the time to testify in his defense.
If that's not ineffective assistance of counsel, I don't know what is.
Burton's appeal lawyer eventually found a judge who agreed and freed him.
It's really a massive job putting together an innocence case.
Our system is failing.
ACLU attorney Gillian Wilcox says they filed a lawsuit to try to force Missouri to spend an extra $20 million each year on public defenders.
They don't have the money to take all the depositions or to hire more investigators, so they can't do all the work.
Missouri currently ranks 49th in public defender funding. The ACLU says the state only has 370 public defenders to handle about 80,000 cases each year.
They're meeting with their clients maybe once every couple months for less than 10 minutes, leading up to a trial on some very serious charges.
The Missouri State Public Defender Director acknowledges they're underfunded and overworked. He gave us this statement saying, in part, "I've done everything short of setting myself on fire to draw attention to the situation that the state has put us in."
This is how messed up my trial was.
Ricky Kidd says his public defender failed to present evidence during his trial that would have proved his innocence.
This is in black and white.
Kidd applied for a gun permit at the sheriff's department the day of the murders with his then girlfriend Monica Gray.
You would think that would be a tight enough alibi to be at a sheriff's department at the time of the murders.
But Kidd's public defender never requested the surveillance video to prove Ricky was there. It was recorded over by the time he appealed his conviction.
Her dad should have been here through these special moments.
Kidd and Gray were expecting their first child when police arrested him. She's 21 years old now, and Kidd is still in prison.
I think people should be frustrated. We want our prosecutors to send those to prison who should be in prison.
After his trial, Kidd says he was assigned another ineffective public defender for his appeal, who he never met.
Most public defender clients never meet their first appellate lawyer.
UMKC law professor Sean O'Brien says Missouri's public defender system keeps getting worse because of so much turnover.
It's worse in Missouri because the system has been so underfunded for so long that there's nobody left in the system who knows how to practice law.
O'Brien used to serve as Kansas City's chief public defender. He resigned in 1989 when Missouri started cutting back on public defender help.
That's when I decided it is impossible to do this job in an ethical manner.
O'Brien says it's so bad public defenders are not assigned for later appeals.
Once you get through that first round of appeals, there's no government program or government obligation to give you a lawyer.
So then the wrongly imprisoned have to file these appeal requests themselves. But if they miss a deadline or forget any arguments or evidence, it's too late. No one can go back and fix those mistakes.
You cannot add new facts at that point.
That's what state officials are using to block innocence claim appeals like Ricky Kidd's.
We have to start asking ourselves, why is it difficult for the state to correct injustice?
We decided to ask state officials that very question to try to get answers. We'll find out why the government isn't fixing the problem when we come back. I mean, you can't even talk about your arguments in your court filing?
They speak for themselves, sir.
That it's too late for him to file an appeal, he missed his chance? So even if he's innocent, it's too late. That's what I'm reading. I just want to make sure I've got that right. Over the past year, 41 Action News has uncovered examples of Missouri blocking cases of inmates who claim they're innocent. We kept digging to find out why, and we discovered the government isn't even arguing those inmates are guilty, but it keeps fighting their appeals.
Our judicial system is broken.
6 months ago, Governor Eric Greitens acknowledged problems in Missouri's court system.
We must reform our correction system.
And talked about upholding the Constitution.
I believe in the Sixth Amendment, which guarantees the right to a fair trial and adequate legal representation for all.
I believe in the Constitution as it is written.
Josh Hawley made that campaign promise before winning last year's election as Missouri's Attorney General.
The people of Missouri want someone who's going to stand up and fight for them.
But neither Hawley nor Governor Greitens will answer our repeated questions about the problems in Missouri's court system.
Defending freedom in the courts is my job.
But freedom is not coming for people like Ricky Kidd because Hawley's office keeps filing motions to block innocence claims. Since the Attorney General won't talk to us,
we want to talk to you about the Ricky Kidd case.
We tracked down his Assistant Attorney General after he appealed to a judge.
We want to know why you're opposing Ricky Kidd's
release. Why don't you talk to our press officer? Thank you, though.
I've tried.
These are glaring facts.
Ricky Kidd says the state keeps fighting his claim that his former public defender failed to investigate evidence that proves he's wrongly imprisoned.
They're not even arguing that I'm not innocent.
You just spoke in court, though. You can't talk to us?
Sir, I would be glad to have you talk to our press office.
I've already tried that. So why do you oppose his release? A police commissioner says he's innocent.
Ricky Kidd is innocent.
Former Kansas City Police Commissioner Alvin Brooks told us he re-examined the 1996 double murder and realized they locked up the wrong guy.
Ricky Kidd serving life sentences on crimes he didn't commit.
Former Jackson County prosecutor Cindy Dodge agrees and is representing Kidd for free.
You don't have any concern that a police commissioner and former prosecutor say he's innocent? I mean, according to your name is here right in the court document, and you're not even arguing that he's guilty, just technicalities that he missed his chance to properly appeal. You don't seem concerned about this. Do you even think he's guilty? No answer? I mean, you're spending taxpayer money to fight this case. You're keeping him locked up in prison. Is that the best use of taxpayer money?
Y'all have a good day, sir.
This is nuts.
Dodge says not only does Kidd have an alibi, the evidence shows who actually did the murders.
Why isn't he being prosecuted?
The evidence even points to who the real killer might be. Have you investigated that?
Maybe they have higher political aspirations. Maybe they're afraid that a civil suit will follow.
What is the reason? Is the state concerned about a wrongful conviction lawsuit?
No government official in the cash-strapped state will tell us why, but Missouri keeps filing motions to block Kidd's appeal. Law professor Sean O'Brien volunteers to help the wrongly imprisoned.
I won a case in the Supreme Court called Schlup versus Delo.
That U.S. Supreme Court ruling said prisoners do have the right to present any new evidence in court. O'Brien helped Ricky Kidd use that decision to appeal his case in federal court. But the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals interpreted the Supreme Court ruling to mean only new evidence not available at trial.
even if a public defender didn't use it.
It's not as if we're trying to present old evidence again to a jury. This is evidence that a jury never heard.
O'Brien appealed the ruling against Kidd to the U.S. Supreme Court, but it decided not to hear the case.
The Supreme Court gets about 12 to 13,000 of those every year. There's only 9 justices, and they only accept 200 cases.
O'Brien hopes the Supreme Court justices will issue another ruling that's more clear to help free the wrongly imprisoned like Kidd and Rodney Lincoln. Lincoln's also serving a life sentence despite no evidence remaining against him.
Look at the evidence. And if they do that, I'm going home.
But just last month, the Missouri Supreme Court declined to hear Lincoln's case. That upholds a lower court decision stating Missouri judges have no authority to free an innocent prisoner unless it's a death penalty case.
Missouri's standard for releasing innocent prisoners is tougher than in other states.
Rodney Lincoln was just denied parole again.
The one emotion I try to hang on to is love. I got people out there that love me.
He and Ricky Kidd have each asked the governor for a pardon.
You just keep hoping that somebody somewhere along the chain of authority will do the right thing.
But just like us, they've never heard back from the governor.
The Constitution applies to every citizen. We need a justice system that does justice by all of our people.
While no one in the state is fixing problems, one congressman tells us he's looking into changes. We'll tell you what exactly can be done to improve the justice system when we come back.
It's wrong for the taxpayers to pay the cost of keeping the wrong person in prison.
Nobody seems to pay a price for being tough on crime, even when the object of that toughness is an innocent person.
It's unbelievable. If innocence isn't enough to let you out of prison, what is?
41 Action News has shown you how mistakes and a lack of accountability lead to wrongful convictions. But even after those problems are pointed out, the government still doesn't fix them. We found one congressman, though, who's looking into helping the wrongly imprisoned and preventing it from happening to you.
Because I was so full of anger and hate and bitterness and unforgiveness. I was physically in prison, but also spiritually. I was in prison as well.
Before becoming a pastor,
Thanks for coming.
Darrell Burton wondered if anyone would free him from his wrongful murder conviction.
Local courts, federal courts, all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. No court would overturn my conviction.
The Federal Appeals Court in St. Louis ruled it has an obligation to apply the law as it is, but also said Burton's case troubles us because the wrong man may have been convicted. The judges even wrote they hope that the state of Missouri courts or governor reconsider the case.
Darrell thanks God. I thank Judge Richard Callahan.
Darrell Burton's appeals attorney says it took years to finally find a judge who agreed to free him.
A lot of people sitting in prison right now who have strong innocence cases, but because of the rules and laws that are in place, they can't even get into a courtroom.
You got to find a court that has the power to release your client.
UMKC law professor Sean O'Brien says most judges don't have a clear law to cite in Missouri or federal courts.
It's judges being afraid of the label of activist judges.
Professor O'Brien says the few judges who do free innocent prisoners are usually going beyond their jurisdiction and power. That's why he and the Midwest Innocence Project want lawmakers to make changes to help the wrongly imprisoned.
Pass a law that says if you can show that you are actually innocent, that is enough to get you out of prison.
Tricia Bushnell says she's asked Missouri lawmakers to pass innocence laws like in some states, including allowing more DNA testing and improving eyewitness identification standards.
Those measures cost $0, but Missouri won't pass it.
So we reached out to Congressman Emanuel Cleaver of Kansas City, who knows Pastor Burton. Cleaver's office tells us they're looking into a nationwide bill to help the wrongly imprisoned.
We don't have a level playing field.
Since Missouri ranks 49th in public defender funding, Professor O'Brien says the government should more equally fund prosecutors and public defenders.
The prosecution is routinely better resourced than the defense. So when one side always outguns the other, you don't get reliable results.
O'Brien says Missouri should also join 31 other states that offer automatic compensation to anyone who's freed from a wrongful conviction.
And they decide, oh, it's cheaper to have a reasonable compensation package.
Cheaper than wrongful imprisonment lawsuits that have ended in payouts as high as $102 million. Currently, Missouri limits compensation to just DNA testing, but not every case has testable evidence.
Individuals who are released after proving their innocence often get absolutely nothing. Daryl didn't get anything.
Daryl Burton sued Missouri for wrongful conviction compensation, but the state fought his lawsuit and won.
I think it's just a desire to win and not to be wrong and not to let the system be proven to have all these errors and flaws.
Pastor Burton ended up forgiving those who wrongly imprisoned him for nearly 25 years.
Every one of us who've been hurt and harmed, we could use a message of hope and forgiveness.
He forgives, but doesn't forget what the government did to him. Burton hopes more people help shine a light on the problems in the criminal justice system.
Please bow your heads in prayer.
Burton prays the truth will set other innocent people free, all across the country and even in Missouri.
One of the men we introduced you to has a shot at freedom. Ricky Kidd has an appeal hearing scheduled to start on Monday, even though the state keeps filing motions to try to stop it. We'll let you know what a judge decides. And you can find updates here on 41 Action News and our website, kshb.com. Thanks for watching. I'm Patrick Fazio.